So let's look at a few features of the cradle cushion and what to expect. The first thing to note is that this is not a shoulder rest, and this touches the collarbone. The shoulder rest touches the shoulder out here, and so they're two different items. This is, however, meant to help players play without a shoulder rest. The two primary complaints players have when trying to play without a shoulder rest is that the instrument is hard on the collarbone, the radius is kind of sharp here, and it's also slippery. So it requires, playing with just a chin rest requires quite a bit of work from the left hand to help hold the instrument. And so shoulder rests fix that, but at a cost. They move the primary point of contact with the instrument out to the shoulder, and the shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body. And so in order to establish that static position for the instrument, that means the shoulder has to be static. And so that requires a bunch of muscle engagement, and it's a static muscle engagement, which is notoriously unhealthy for any protracted length of time. So what we're trying to do here is reestablish a way of playing where the primary point of contact with the instrument is the collarbone, and the primary transfer of weight is directly from the jaw straight down to the collarbone through the instrument and the chin rest. And the two tools you really need to have dialed in for that, well, the most important thing really is the chin rest. You have to have a really well-fitting chin rest in order for that to work. And then the cushion will help prevent the instrument from slipping away and add a little bit it adds quite a bit of rounding, so the radius of the cushion is much wider than the radius of the instrument, and it's quite grippy, and then it adds a little bit of squishiness here. You'll probably be surprised though that it's not as squishy as you might think it would be, and we did that on purpose. The more compression you add, the more instability you put into the system. If you're not used to having something directly on your collarbone in a substantial way, having that be the primary point of contact, you should be ready to have a little bit of soreness here for a little while, but eventually you should have no problem. And I think you'll find that we got the correct balance between compression and structure. When you put the instrument directly on the collarbone, the contact patch where the collarbone crosses the instrument is actually quite small for most people, which is why the cushion doesn't go along the whole edge of the instrument. It doesn't need to. It only needs to, you're only contacting about that much of the instrument, even without the cushion. So we designed it for that reason, this size for that reason. And then you can also move it along the edge of the instrument. You can see there's space on both sides of the chin rest foot, and that means you can move it along that edge depending on what the relationship between your jaw and your collarbone is and how the instrument is positioned. So keep that in mind. Anytime you take a shoulder rest off, you're going to produce more motion in the instrument. There's just simply no way of fixing the instrument in the same way that a shoulder rest does without one. So if I just let the instrument, so that's without my hand supporting. So you can see it's really not that much of a droop, but it's a little bit of one. And so your left hand might have to do a little bit more work and might take some getting used to on that front. Players who play without a shoulder rest already will, I think, immediately find the cradle cushion quite helpful because you're already used to having something directly on your collarbone, for one thing, and you're used to dealing with the fact that the instrument wants to slip away. Those are some ideas of the cradle cushion. I will just say too that it is not magical. So it's not going to just magically fix whatever setup issues you might be struggling with. I think it will help significantly, but keep that all in mind, and I hope that you find the cradle cushion useful in your own playing.